Hi, everyone. It's Bee with Journey to Jackpot Slots, and I am super excited today to have a famous YouTuber, Cowboy Slots, Brantley.
Mhm.
And we have a million questions for him. Hopefully, he can tolerate us. So, welcome, Brantley.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, B. I really appreciate the invite and you reaching out, and I'm excited to hear the questions.
We're excited. I've reached out to a couple people, and I can't thank you enough for being the first one to respond. And I also wanted to say that I think that you, of all the YouTubers, give the best information out there for someone that really wants to be able to leave the casino with money and have a good time.
Well,
So
thank
the
you.
journey starts with I want to know, like, your behind story. You were fixing slot machines in your garage. Okay. So I want to know, like, the first slot machine, how did you find it? How old were you?
Mhm.
Was it your parents' garage, your garage?
Yeah, so a little bit of a interest. I'll kind of summarize everything into the best nutshell that I can. Um, so I was interested in learning more about how slot machines worked, and it started. I bought one machine. It was a five-line triple stars machine. I bought it from a guy in town, and started working on it. And then him and I got together because he was selling slot machines, and I thought, we could make this a bigger operation. And I ended up starting a retail store. And I started a retail store reselling slot machines, and then got really in depth into more of the technical aspect of it, how to work on them, how to fix them, and really learning everything about the machines itself, kind of from the basics ground up from there. One of the guys that I had met, who I had started working with, was a field technician for one of the game makers, and so I kind of went under his wing for a little bit and learned a little bit from him. And then after that, I was actually recruited by one of the casinos to go work for them, and started working in the casino industry at that point. And in a nutshell, rounded up, I ended up working for about four different casinos during that time, and kind of moved on from there. And then we moved several years down the line, moved to Wyoming, which is where I'm at right now. And then the channel got started. And the channel kind of got started almost based on kind of an accident. A lot like how you were telling me a little bit earlier before the show, you looked up something, and I was the first one to pop up. When I first started looking at slot content, the first channel to pop up for me was Stacy's High Limit Slots. And I reached out to Stacy, and I was like, "Hey, did you ever, know this about one of the games that she was playing?" Because she asked a question in one of her videos. And after that, I asked her, I said, "Hey, do you think I could, put together a video like about, just some random facts about slot machines and stuff like that?" And she said, "Oh, that would be pretty cool." Well, at the time, I didn't know anything about YouTube. I knew nothing about YouTube. I knew nothing about video editing or anything. So I just did a short little video, and I put it on YouTube, and I sent Stacy the link. Well, I had no idea that everybody could see that video because, again, YouTube was not my thing. Um, and I had woken up one morning, and it was only about a week or so later, and it had, probably 20,000, 30,000 views. And I get an email from YouTube, and they're like, "Hey, you can monetize your channel. You can do all these things." And I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I didn't know what any of that meant." So I asked Stacy, and she's like, "Oh, that's actually really good." And first thought in my mind was, I can't believe people like this stuff. I don't know why people are interested in it, but and so I made some more videos from there, and then that's when Cowboy Slots got started on YouTube. So it was kind of an accidental thing. It was nothing that I had intentionally set out to do. I didn't go out and start a channel with any kind of intentions whatsoever. So the founding of the channel and how it all came to be was just the cards falling in the right place at the right time, so to speak. And now we're about ready to hit 400,000 subscribers. So it's crazy in the 3 years that I've been doing it.
Well, I see one of your videos when you first started. I think it was like how to pick a slot machine, got like 1.6 million views.
Yeah,
That's a lot of views. That had to be really like encouraging for you to keep going.
it was. It definitely was encouraging. The biggest issue that we found, that I learned later on is if you go back to a lot of the old videos, I didn't know anything about like the editing process or, good lighting or cameras or audio or anything like that. So it was a lot of just me stumbling through it, and I was doing everything on the fly. So we, and of course that video now is very much outdated. We've added a lot more information to that since then, just because at the time I wasn't really thinking about all the details, so to speak. So we've added in all of the details since then. And kind of, we've gone back and almost redone some of the older videos to be more specific and clear, and really hearing the feedback from the viewer about individual questions that they have and stuff like that, to really kind of develop this platform that people can go to for real trusted information, which is another thing that was a big problem in YouTube at the time. It was a big gap to fill, and even still today, there was not anybody at that time that was an actual casino employee that had actually done the job and done all of these tasks that people have these questions about.
Yeah.
Do the odds change? What does the player's card do? Stuff like that. um, there were people out there, and there still are today, that they make guesses, but they don't actually have the correct information of, no, this is the actual procedure, this is what's actually done. And so I think that's where Cowboy Slots really filled the niche, so to speak, on that.
Oh yeah, no, we appreciate that because, like I said, we would lose for years, not a day or two, literally years. And then we stumbled upon your videos. Just one day, it's like somebody's got videos on this, and then we saw your videos, and it made us smarter gamblers, no doubt about that. But with that process, have you found the fame annoying, or do you like it?
I was never one to seek out fame or attention. Um, in real life, the people that are close to me and know me on a personal level know that I'm very much an introvert. We even, a lot of times, it's funny because people will, they'll watch videos of our live play and they're like, why is the casino so dead? Personally, for me, I don't like crowds. I don't like, really loud, loud environments and crowds and stuff like that. There's been many times I've gone to, like I'll go to events like G2E that are, a lot of people, I mean, thousands of people in these giant crowds. And I'll go in and I'll shake some hands and then I'll leave, just because it's not really my thing. I don't like being around it. So when we go out to film, we will pick the slowest day at the slowest time possible to go, usually. And there are times that I can tolerate some crowds. But as for the fame aspect, it really kind of does catch me off guard all the time. I know there was one time I had just gone out to, I was in another town and I had to run to the grocery store for something. And someone came up to me and they're like, "Hey, Brantley," and it doesn't, the two don't really connect for me very well. So I'm just, who knows me, who is, because I'm not thinking about YouTube. I'm not thinking about the channel in that aspect. So, it really hasn't clicked with me, so to speak. But again, it's not something that I actively was out seeking. I never wanted to be an influencer. I never wanted to be, any kind of, celebrity, so to speak. I didn't set out to do that. So it's different for sure. Slowly getting used to it, but it still takes time.
This question I wasn't going to ask till later, but I'll ask it now. We were watching a couple of news videos saying about how people are now targeting, have been like for the last 2 years, gamblers. Like they're either following them home, or just getting them in the parking lot and trying to rob them. Does that ever bother you? Have you ever thought about that?
It doesn't really bother me very much, just because, I mean, we have a couple of factors working for our channel that not a lot of people do. For one, we're very remote. We're based out of the middle of nowhere in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Um, the nearest, just to get to the nearest highway, is an hour away. So nobody's going to go. I mean, even with proper directions, it would be difficult to find. Um, but aside from that, we tend to go to very small, um, very small casinos, good casinos. Obviously, the casino knows we're coming. The staff is normally always there. They're watching us every time that we're there. But we do go on, very slow times, very slow days, and we change it up a lot. We don't go to a lot of the really big casinos, anything like that. That hasn't really been a big concern of ours. And usually with most influencers, just like many of the larger channels now, we usually are always traveling with other people too. So there's usually a staff that's there all the time. So very rarely would it just be me by myself. But
How many
so there's a
staffers?
couple factors.
How many staffers do you have?
Right now we have a total of 5.
Oh, okay. It takes 5 people to do it. Yeah, and they all come with you every time?
Not all of them. But the backbone of the channel has got to be Ethan. He's our video editor.
Yeah.
He takes on, which Ethan is all of about 21 years old. He's a college student. He's going to college for cinematography. I was very fortunate to find him, and he just does an absolutely phenomenal job. He's a very hard worker, and just very proud to have him on the team. And usually he comes with me a
Oh,
lot of
that's
times.
great. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and leading from some of the other questions, are you selling your slot machines? I've watched enough of your videos. You talk about machines to buy, what not to buy, things like that. Are you selling your own slot machines online, things like that?
So me personally, I don't. I used to sell slot machines long before the channel. It's not something that I do anymore. The machines that I have here, they're mine. They're my part of my collection. I don't have any intent on selling those anytime soon. We do partner with trusted retailers that I know and trust from that time when I was selling slot machines. So we make those resources available to people. But as for me personally, I don't sell them.
Was there ever like a personal experience for you that made you decide to go on and give people all this good information?
There was. A lot of times working in the casino, you see it every day. You see people that come in and they lose way beyond what their means should have been. And when I worked in the casino industry, there was an older lady. She came to the casino religiously every single day. She was retired. She used to bring me treats and stuff like that. We always had a lot of fun. And this one particular casino that I worked at was, some casinos do this, not many, but this one particular casino that I worked at, we would alternate roles sometimes. So sometimes we would be on the floor, sometimes we'd be in the cage. And on this particular day, I was working in the cage. And she came up and, she was crying at the cage and her hands were kind of shaking and she was like wanting to try like all these different cards. And she told me that she had just lost her entire retirement and she
Oh,
didn't know what to do. And the casino is very heavily regulated in a way of somebody has to say particular words in order for you to initiate any kind of problem gambling assistance. Like they have to say like that they need help or they have to say that they have a problem. If they don't say that, then you can't interject. um and for this particular situation, I was like, maybe, just try to, maybe try another day. And then I was trying to, like see if I could, get her phone number or something to call her personally and say, hey, like,
Oh,
just take a break for a while. Gambling can get very out of control for a lot of people. It is very much, and I see this a lot. People always want to focus on the machine. What can I do different to the machine? And really, to be successful at gambling, it has nothing to do with what you can do to the machine. It has everything to do with up here and your approach to it.
Right.
You and there's a lot of people that they're so focused on the machine, and they have such a high focus on, well, if this machine has better odds, then that means I'm going to win, and that's all they see. And that's not the case. And it can get a lot of people into a lot of trouble. And that's when I really started to look at how helpful this information can be if people choose to receive it. And that's the big part. We can lead a horse to water. We can't force them to drink it. But if people can start reconditioning how they think about gambling and how they approach the machines, then that can change everything. So I think that was kind of the biggest turning point for me.
It does. It did with me. I listened to a lot of what you said and it resonated. But there are times that I fall back into those old ways. I try and chase that
Everyone
jackpot.
does. And that's the funny thing about gambling and just kind of the human psychology and the human mind is we all fall victim to that, myself included. And I'm not omitting myself, from that. I am not fallible. There's a lot of times that I go to the casino and I have a plan in place and I get caught up in the gambling just like everybody else does. That is a perfectly normal thing, but making sure that at least the first step is making sure that you're aware of that is going to really make a lot of change and start doing that. One of the things that I implemented, which I strongly encourage everybody to do it, I even do this still to this day. And every single trip that I implement this on, I am successful. And that is utilizing a lockbox. And it's funny because we've talked about the lockbox a few times on the channel, and a lot of people laugh at the idea or say, "Oh, you don't need that," or just put it in your pocket. But when you have something that it is locked away and the key is at home, there were times even recently that I just completely will lose track of how much I'm putting in the box. Like I'll win a jackpot and then I'll put a little bit of money in the box and win another jackpot, put a little bit of money in the box. And there have been many times, I mean, this recent trip that I came home, I didn't know how much was in the box. I opened it and it had $15,000 in there. That's $15,000 that I would not have had if I did not have that lockbox. So there's a lot of things like that mental conditioning that you can start doing uh, to really be more successful. And you might not leave with 100% of everything, but if you're using that lockbox, you're coming home with more than you came in with, which is what's important. So some little tips and tricks like that always help.
Well, even like with that, like I'm very competitive. Now, if you and I go bowling, I don't care if you win, long as we have a good time. But sometimes when it comes to money, if you and I would play pool, we put $100, I want to beat you. Do you think that's some people's mindset? Because I've watched other YouTubers, and some people say some people get addicted to losing. It releases some endorphins in the mind, and it's like they don't know when to turn it off.
That is actually very true. A lot of people think that it's the rush of winning, but science has proven time and time again that it's actually the rush of losing, because losing will release more of those endorphins than winning will. I mean, unless of course if you win like $15 million, you're going to be overcome with emotion at that point. But no, that is very true, and that's why the chase, as it's always referred to, can get very dangerous for a lot of people. And we try to hammer that home, in every video that we do, even videos. There's even videos that I do that I will acknowledge and I'll say like, okay, I'm going to choose to proceed to do this, but you really shouldn't do it unless you're safe and comfortable doing so. And I think that's a really important thing to hammer into any gambling content, just because you don't know who's watching and you don't know what that person's mental state might be. They could be very prone to problem gambling, and that's not something that we want as a channel. That's not something that the casino wants either. It's a very serious topic.
Did can you tell me, like, do you make more on gambling, or do you make more on your YouTube channel or your merch? How does that work
So
for you?
For
yeah.
somebody that's starting out
Yeah.
that might want to get into it.
Okay. So I mean, we can break those three up into three separate categories. And the first one for the YouTube channel, obviously, we do make money off of the YouTube channel through ad revenue. Every channel does. Last year, I actually made more from gambling than all of it combined. Very difficult to do, and I was actually surprised about this, but all of my win-loss statements from all the casinos that I went to, except for one, was actually in the black. So there was more wins than there was losses, and last year it added up to $1.2 million. um
No, she really wants to
and
get into this. I'm trying to convince her. Maybe, maybe not.
I
I
just
mean,
want to
but
gamble.
I do also want to say this, and I want to preface with this too. We try to focus on the channel on a little bit of something for everybody. We'll do low limits. Sometimes we might come out with a video where we're working with $20. We might come out with a video where we're working with $500 or a couple $1,000. But me personally, like I am, and I've said this in a few live streams, I am a high limit gambler. So if I go out and if I'm playing just on my own personal time and not recording, because I don't record every single time that I'm at the casino, I will play $250, $500 per spin. And that's just me. So that's where a lot of that comes from. Um, and then the third category you had mentioned, merch. We really don't make a lot of money off of merch, if anything. I mean, we're lucky to see a profit of maybe $20 a month off of merch.
Oh.
Merch is really more of a, you know, for us, it's more of a viewer courtesy. If somebody would like to buy merch, they can. We're not making money hand over fist on merch by any means. A lot of times we lose money on merch. There have been a lot of products that we've come out with that, we've ended up, taking a loss on. So we don't really do a lot of focus on merch, and that's pretty much the same for most channels out there. Usually, merchandise is one of those things that you're not going to make a whole lot of money on, but it is courteous to your fan base, and it does help to get your name out there. But it's more of, if you're going to get into the realm of merch, it's more one of those things of kind of like a marketing thing mostly, as opposed to a profit making venture.
What do you think your merch can help open up doors? Because you know, and obviously we're finding this out. A lot of casinos won't allow you to gamble. And I've watched your one video. You did a couple of shorts on it where some people will let you do it. Oh, sorry, film, and others won't. But do you think if people come in with your merch, that can maybe open up some casinos to allowing people to film inside of it?
You would think, but when it comes to filming policies, no, usually the casinos are pretty set in their ways on that. We will only work with casinos that allow filming. um and then, even then, there's always a procedure. Excuse me. Every single casino is different. Some casinos you have to fill out a lot of paperwork for. Some casinos you have to, you can only use certain types of cameras, or you can only do certain things. You can't walk around with it. So there's a lot of rules, and every casino is going to be different on that. For us, it's already being remotely in Wyoming, it's very difficult as it is. But for us to travel out, it's extremely difficult. It's much more difficult than most channels have it, especially during the winter time. So we don't just, I know a lot of the channels like to just go to any and every casino that they possibly can, and we just don't have that luxury to be able to do. um so if we're going to plan a trip to a casino, we do a lot of planning in advance. We'll reach out to the casino. We'll usually have a lot of emails, probably some Zoom calls back and forth with management. What do you allow? What do you not allow? How is this going to work? Who's going to be there? Who can we meet? What time can we be there? Stuff like that. So we put a lot of planning and effort into every time that we film. um Biggest advice that I can give, if there's any channels out there that are wanting to go film at casinos, is always ask, because every casino has way different rules. You might go to there's a lot of casinos out there that they just don't care. you can film whatever, do whatever. They have, very limited restrictions on what you can and can't do. El Cortez is one of them. They have a very short list of rules, but it's very basic. I know in Vegas, Durango Casino is another one that, they're just, you can film as long as you're not, disrespectful to anybody, you can film. But then there's others like Fountain Blue is very restrictive. You have to go through a huge process to start filming at Fountain Blue. And even then, your videos have to go to them for approval first before they can be posted. MGM, you have to fill out an application well, they've changed it now every year. You have to fill out an application. So the biggest advice that I can give if you want to film at casinos is just always check, because you really just never know what that individual property's rules are.
Do you think I mean, your personal opinion, do you think they should change that? Because that could make, obviously, we follow a lot of gambling, and, like Vegas is down 40%, Atlantic City's down. Because you opened up our eyes to places in Vegas we would have never thought about going to, like the El Cortez, that's in Reno, instead of going to Vegas. Like, okay, if we want to film here, but do you think by them opening it up, to more influencers like yourself, that'd be better for business, because any
I think,
publicity can be good publicity.
yeah, I mean, any publicity is really good publicity, and I think it would be wise and smart for casinos to open up like that. Um, it is a public place. The Supreme Court has ruled time and time again that there is no expectation of privacy when you are in a public place. So if you go out in public and somebody is filming, and for whatever reason, then you can't demand that they stop filming. The only thing is that obviously casinos are privately run businesses, so they can ask you to leave if they don't like how you're doing it. I think it's a matter of respect. I think that they should open it up, but there should still be some kind of check or restriction in place, just to make sure that they don't just have anybody and everybody walking in or being disrespectful or something like that. I know with our channel and many other larger channels too, we take great effort to make sure that everybody's privacy is respected. We don't have to in a lot of casinos. That's not something that we have to do. It's not any kind of a requirement, but we still do that as a courtesy. Making sure we're blurring out faces, or when we set up the cameras, to angle it in a way that is getting the least amount of people in the shot, stuff like that. So I think that the responsibility kind of falls on both parties there. I think the casinos should be more open and receptive to it, as long as the influencers are also respectful of it. I think it's a kind of a two-way street on that.
Let me ask, what was the one I was going to ask? Do you have one while I'm looking here?
Oh, well, actually, I got a ton of questions.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
for it. Go for
Oh,
it.
no, no. There's just one question because, like I said, I watch your videos religiously. And my question is, like you said, the high roller rooms, you will see people that win there more because they're typically playing at a higher denomination. But say like a Dragon Cash game. Should you go in there and play at the $5 denomination, which is going to be the lowest bet, or should you go on the floor and then move that up to like 2 cent, 5 cent, and then do a $5 denomination? Because from watching your videos, a lot of times the more you move up in the denomination, you're better your chances of winning. Or should you just go in that high roller room and go with that low denom?
So it really, this is kind of one of those loaded questions of it depends, because there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors involved, on the player side. For example, what is your bankroll? Do you have a backup bankroll? Are you comfortable losing that? Are what is your comfort level, so to speak? That should be the primary focus first and foremost over everything, is just what are you comfortable with doing and what does your bankroll allow you to do. um, a lot of times, and I've noticed this many times, where players will, because you did mention one thing which I will just toss that out there. It is a fact, it's a standard industry practice that the higher denomination will typically have a lower household, but that does not affect you in your individual session. So that's also really important to note, because that's the long-term aggregate of the machine's performance. So I think a lot of times people will get caught up in that fact and they'll think, oh, better odds at the higher denomination. I need to just go ham and bet the highest right away. But if your bankroll doesn't allow to do that, or if you don't have a big enough bankroll to do that, then you're almost shooting yourself in the foot. So it would depend heavily on what your bankroll is. So we'll use the Dragon Cash example, the $5 denom. Dragon Cash $5 denom, the minimum bet on that is $125 a spin. Well, if you use the 1% rule, you should technically have $12,500 to be able to play at that level. So if you go in and you're like, I got $1,000, could you get lucky? Yeah. Or you could lose that $1,000 in, half a minute. So it depends on the bankroll. If you have a big enough bankroll to do it, and if you have a big enough, budget to really sustain yourself, then I would go for the $5 denom. But if you don't, working your way up would be the best choice. So work your way up from a smaller denom and then try to get up to that, up to that level. Then you also have to think about, what is your goal? Is your goal, are you trying to just, make your time last? Are you trying to double your bankroll? Are you trying to hit a major? There's a lot of factors, because then you also have to take that, and then now you have to adapt your gameplay to what you want your end result to be. And this is kind of going into one of those other things too, is this is a lot of information, and it's a lot of making decisions on the fly and trying to see what's going to be the best to yield the best result that you want. And a lot of people, what I've found is, they'll take one piece of information and then they'll run with that, but they won't consider that you might have to adapt it depending on what your goal is, what your budget is, all of that. And that will cause more failure than anything. So a lot of factors there, but yeah, it is definitely a lot of information. And we could narrow it down if you wanted to, shoot me an example. Say, you have this amount of bankroll and your goal is this, and I'll kind of adapt the same scenario to that.
Okay, say if you have $500 and you go in the high roller room and the minimum bet is $5, but then you still have that same $500 and then you go out on the floor where you can do it for a penny and say the maximum bet be $750. Would you start on the floor, then maybe work up to the high roller room, or would you just take that 500 and go in the high roller room and just roll the dice?
Okay, so some backup questions here. Is that 500 all you have, or do you have more? You're just starting with 500.
I can go get more.
Okay. Are you comfortable and safe getting more?
Well, we've done this before. I don't like to lose when it comes to money.
Yeah.
But no, just for just an example, just you got 500. That's all you brought to the casino. That's all you have to work with.
All right. So if that's the case, if you have $500, that's all you have to work with. I would start out on the main floor doing a lower bet level, first. You also have to consider, so for the example, the game of Dragon Cash, and this is kind of where reading those game rules really comes into play. And this is yet another layer of the sandwich that people have to remember too. So say your goal is you want to hit a maxed out major. We'll just say that. So on the game of Dragon Cash and the game of Dragon Link, it's heavily dependent on your bet multiplier. The higher that you can get that bet to that prize amount, the better the chances are of, the words coming out, like the mini, the minor, the major, stuff like that. So if your goal is to try to hit like let's say one of those games has a maxed out major, then in that case, then playing penny level max bet of, like you said, 750 might be the more lucrative option for you, because you are going to get larger, you're going to get the larger orbs to come out. You're going to get the, more of the balls to come out that say mini and minor and hopefully a major. You're going to get more stuff like that to come out. So it's, again, it all ties back to, there's a lot of layers to the sandwich that people have to put together to really try to make it successful. And it took me years to get it down. So I don't fault anybody for, taking their time and learning it. I think the only part that's kind of frustrating is when someone just takes one layer of the sandwich and they run with it and they say, oh, it didn't work. And it's like, well, you've got all these other layers that you happen to miss. So, yeah, but that's kind of what I would do with that budget is I would start out on the main floor and ease your time, especially if that's the budget that you have with you for the casino.
Okay, that's good to know because sometimes, people don't express that one way or the other. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna go. Like one night we saw this kid, he just $50 a bet and just ran through all of his money.
In 4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Yeah, and he put a couple $1,000s in there. It's like, it's like, I don't know if that's the best idea. You're going for the home run. And like you say, you got to have your 1% rule so you can withstand those losses. You might go through a bunch of spins and, 50 spins, you don't win anything. That brings up another thing. And I've heard you say this before, but do you really believe machines get hot and cold? Because I played it where it's like bam, 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 bam. And then all of a sudden, crickets,
Yeah.
and
So with the hot and cold thing, I can tell you right now from, I've done a lot of work with these machines and not just in my house and not just for the computer, not just for the casino, but I've worked with a lot of game developers. I've been in the development studios, I've seen the software, I know extensively about the programming of these machines. There is no programming for hot and cold. There is no streaks that is specifically programmed into any kind of slot machine that's out there. Every single spin has to be a random independent event. You're going to naturally, because of the law of large number and mathematics, you're naturally going to have more losing spins than winning spins. But it does certainly feel like there's hot and cold times. And that's one thing that, it's one of those the gambler's mentality. And it's funny because people will always try to tune that narrative to justify what they're doing. You'll hear one person say, oh, it's hot, we have to stay on it. And then they'll say, oh, it's hot, it just hit, we have to leave it because it's not going to pay out again. Or, oh, it's ice cold, it must be due. Or, oh, it's ice cold, it's not going to pay, let's leave. So, they kind of use that to tune their narrative. But in terms of actual programming and how slot machines work, you have the same chance on every single spin regardless. There's not hot and cold streaks that machines go through by design. It can certainly feel like that sometimes, but the way I see it is, slot machines run on a very long-term picture. You as the player are running a sprint where the slot machine is running a marathon. The slot machine is going to sit there and run for months and years after you leave. It has no concept of hot and cold. It doesn't. It just knows, you hit the button, it generates a result. That's all that it knows. So, but it's funny because a lot of times people will get very wrapped up in the whole hot and cold mentality, and you'll always notice this. And I want you to pay attention to this too. Like when you go out or when you're watching somebody else gamble, watch how they tune the narrative. They'll tune their narrative to what they believe or what they want to think. So they'll be like, oh, this machine is really hot, it's hitting bonus left after right, we can't leave it because it's hitting so much. And then they'll go to another machine or something down the line after they lose, of course, and they'll say, oh, this machine just hit a big jackpot, it's not going to pay out again, we can't play it. So it's like, well, which one is it? So you'll catch
That is
people like
me.
that
I
doing
will
that.
look and
Which
I'll
one
say,
is it?
I'm not going to play this. It just hit a big jackpot.
Oh
Yeah.
no! Well, she did that before on I think it was Huff and Puff, and I told her do the backup spins, and she actually ended up winning more money than what she initially was going to walk away from. But that can be one of those hard things. Now, this is more of a stupid question, but who
There's no stupid questions.
well, who creates the myths? The players or the casinos? Because, like, I've watched enough of your videos. Oh, you see this coin pile, it's high, don't expect it to hit. And other people go, man, that's going to pop. Look at all those coins on that display. Now, do you think, I'm quite sure the casinos love for you to think that fish in that bowl is cracked and he's a big fish and he's going to pop any second, just put your money in. Do you think that's more players, like that a slot that's near the door, or in the walkway? You know, or do you think it's the casinos or both? Because I'm quite sure the casinos love that if you think that's going to happen and it doesn't.
Honestly, it is the fault of everybody equally, player, casino, and game maker. Um, I will give this to the players out there. When the casino industry first started here in the United States, it was a free for all, run by the mob, gangster thing, and that was the ingrained foundation from the beginning. A lot of these myths that we have today that are running around out there, they might have been true way back in that time because, they were, crooks and cheaters and stuff. There was no regulation, there was no oversight. That is not how it is today. And that it has been a long time since it has been that way. So it's almost the casino industry started on a very rocky foundation. And I think that's where all of the rumors and all of the myths got their start. The biggest culprit for the myths, though, is just the human nature. Human nature and human mentality. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to be a winner. They all want to change their life and they all want to become millionaires. And people will make up narratives or excuses to why that isn't happening. And people have a very difficult time grasping the concept of mathematics, statistics, and probability. This is where the game makers come in. The game makers know that. The game makers 100% know that people are very fallible and they will fall victim to this. That is why perceived progression works so well. That is why fast stopping works so well. These are features that they put in there not to give you any kind of control or anything like that, but to give you the illusion that something is going to happen. And you know I can see a point where the perceived progression and the fast stopping thing will probably come to a head eventually, where somebody will eventually stand up and say, hey, like that's not right, and probably start suing the game makers or something like that. And I'm sure gaming commissions will start picking up on that. They're already doing that now with must hit by progressives. We're starting to see must hit by progressives actually go away. Because of a lot of different reasons and factors. But so I think when it comes to the myths, it's kind of the fault of everybody, but it's up to you to change that mindset and change that belief. Fast stopping is a great example. Probably one of the greatest features ever invented for the casino, because when you first hit that button on a slot machine, the result is already determined. You're not changing anything by stopping the reels or fast stopping it. That is an entertainment feature. And it even says this in the very fine print of the game rules. It says this on, par sheets, everything else out there, all the other documentation. And I've met the people that have, that were behind building this feature. And the only reason why that feature exists is because it gives people the illusion of control and it makes them spend money faster. It makes the casino more profits quicker. And that is why that feature exists. And you have a lot of players out there that are, that they say, oh, I got to change up my timing. I'm going to, fast stop it really fast, or I'm going to try to catch that bonus. It doesn't work that way. That's one of those illusions that people have fallen victim into, and we've explained that many times. I've actually gone over in a couple of videos. This is the mechanics of how this feature works. Like, this is exactly a breakdown of what happens when you fast stop, and this is the mechanics of how it works. This is why it was invented, all this. And people will still comment on there. They're like, well, I know for a fact I can catch more bonuses. And I'm like, you would have gotten it either way, whether you fast stopped it or not, it would have gotten the same result. But it's also funny because you can't see both results. You can't have, you can't have two simulations side by side that show what is a fast stop and what would not be a fast stop. So if a player can only see one thing, then that's the only thing that they have to judge that on. And that's where it catches them. So fast stopping was a big thing it was a great thing for casinos and game makers. Same thing with perceived progression. perceived progression is the same way. It tricks everybody into thinking that, oh, it's closer. It's,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
it's closer to hitting a bonus. No, it's not. You have the same chance of hitting a bonus on any other spin, whether the pot is empty or the pig is small or big or whatever. And those don't grow at a consistent rate. Sometimes, you know, you might spin it, and sometimes the firecracker might get brighter. Sometimes it might go up a couple more firecrackers. Sometimes it might not go up at all. Um, it's just entirely a random graphic for entertainment. And again, the game rules do state that. So when it comes to myths and superstitions, it really is kind of just on the fault of everybody. But I don't blame, I really don't blame the players for believing in all of that, just because it has been so ingrained so hard. If you anything that you have been ingrained that's been ingrained in your mind really hard for many years, like your father told you that, your grandfather told you that, your grandmother told you that, you're gonna, if you grew up believing it, you're gonna believe it as an adult. And then now you have the game makers that are playing on to it, and they're playing into it with things like fast stopping and perceived progression and stuff like that. So, you know, in their mind, in a gambler's mind, they would say, well, it must be true then, because even the game makers are doing this now. And it's not. They're just playing into it. You know, they're essentially taking advantage of the fact that people don't really know how it works.
That's what I was
Um,
going to say. You don't know what you don't know until you educate yourself.
And
exactly.
that's happened with us. You know, finding your channel, we lost, I'd say 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Now it's more like 50-50. You know, we'll go in, we'll win, we'll lose. She just hit her first jackpot, you know, playing, what game did you, it was a three reel,
Star.
uh,
It was a
uh,
pink one. I know.
I forget, but it was like a sevens game, and she won on a $3 bet. But that was like listening to your rules, and
Well, no, this was one of the questions I had for you. I thought when I was playing, like it was Christmas Eve, I lost all my money. Okay. I will admit that. Lost everything. He gives me $100 to play with, and we're in the high roller room, and I go on this. It was a three diamond pink machine. I was betting $3 a bet. And what had happened was I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I was just hitting the button. My hand slipped. And when it slipped, it said call attendant. I thought I broke the machine because I had never got a hand pay before, right? I'm like, oh darn, I broke the machine. Kind of looked out the corner of my eye, saw 33.50. I said, okay, I won $33.50. So I'm sitting there waiting for the attendant, and I looked down, and then I looked down again, and I was like, oh my God, I want a hand pay. So my question was, could that was the fast spin question? Could that have been, or was it going to come up anyway? You know, was I going to win that anyway?
It would have come up anyway, but here's the biggest, the, you know, the biggest problem with that is when that a situation like that happens, which congratulations, by the way, that's an awesome story. You should be very proud to do that. When stuff like that happens to most players, the first thing that the brain is going to make that connection with is, I got this because I fast stopped.
Yep.
And they're going to continue to do that no matter what. And the brain is only going to remember the best times and the best outcomes. It's not going to remember the thousands of other times that you lost doing it. It's only going to remember, hey, that one time I got a 33.50 jackpot when I fast stopped it. So it must be because I fast stopped it. And that's kind of where the danger comes in. You know, where the real danger comes into play is, as long as you know that you know those two, the two and two don't correlate, you know, you're fine. But that's an awesome story. Yeah, but no, in terms of fast stopping, it would have happened either way. The result is determined the second you you initially start the spin, when you push the button
Okay.
to start the spin. So it would have happened either way.
well, now I've heard people say about pausing between spins. You know, instead of, because I've watched enough of your videos. Sometimes, you know, you're just back to back to back. Now, say if you take a minute or two or three in between, does that change up anything with the machine itself?
So, you know, obviously, you know, you're probably going to get a different result. Um, But the biggest thing that that does by pausing and taking a step back is just taking time to breathe and really understand and look at how much money do you have in the machine. Do you, it gives you a minute to kind of process and think for a minute. There's a lot of times it doesn't click for us right away. We need a little bit of a minute, and that's why like doing stuff like taking breaks is important. Setting those evaluation points is important. Not that it's going to do anything different to the machine, but it's going to do something different for you, and that's the biggest thing about it. So I always tell people, because one of the fundamental things that you'll hear people talk about when it comes to fast stopping is I've got to change up my timing. And I say,
Yeah, I've
okay,
heard
well,
that.
stopping changes up your timing quite a bit too, or pausing also changes up your timing if you really want to do that. So do the opposite. Um, but it more so gives you the time to reflect and really think about everything.
Yeah, because I've heard people saying that when they fast, stop it, it can recalibrate the machine.
Yeah, that does not recalibrate the machine.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about some personal stuff. I I understand. Oh, tell me about Pop Media. Is that something you started for your YouTube channel, or is it something that, you have clients for? Is it another part of your business?
So that's actually the our parent holding company. So I have a corporation structure. Cowboy Slots is a brand under that corporation structure, but we also do other things in marketing and media. So there's a lot of like the website is another structure. So like ropethejackpot.com is kind of like its own little separate
I love
thing
that. I'm
under
on
that.
it.
Yeah, and then we do a lot of media and marketing for other businesses as well. So even like here in
Oh,
town, so a lot of times if you go into a restaurant and you see like the digital menu boards where it shows like the food and the prices, and it's like the television screen that has the menu on it, we make those. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
there's a business here in town that we do their digital menu for. We do a lot of work for other businesses and stuff like that, and that falls under that brand as well, separate from the Cowboy Slots, but that's just the holding company.
wow, you're into a lot of different
Oh,
things.
does that take a lot of time from the Cowboy Slot channel, or is it more like a 50-50 thing in your downtime? Because I know you don't put out a lot of videos every day, which I appreciate because some people put out too much stuff and it's kind of hard to keep up with it. And I don't have an hour and a half every day to watch everyone. I love that, you put your stuff out Friday, Saturday, and what I do appreciate is you don't play the same machines all the time. Certain people that we
Yeah.
like, it's Dragon Cash, it's Huff and Puff. But does that take anything away or does it just add to your downtime?
It doesn't really take anything away. It's something that obviously, we have staff members for that. So it doesn't take anything away. I don't personally make the digital menus or anything like that. That's Ethan. Ethan is over that as well. So he's a man of many talents, but no, so that doesn't really take away from anything of Cowboy Slots.
Okay. Are you going to keep Ethan on? You said he was an intern.
Yeah, no,
Oh, no,
he
he's
is
going
a
to.
paid he is a paid employee, but he's in college right now, and I hope to keep him on as long as possible. So uh hopefully we'll keep him around.
Okay.
Did the casino, the Shoshone, when because
Shoshone Rose. Yeah.
yes, did they reach out to you or did you reach out to them?
For your Cowboy Slot Zone.
Yeah, so I had reached out to them, and they were the first, you know, the whole state of Wyoming, we only have really two actual casinos. There's Shoshone Rose and there's Wind River. They're 20 minutes apart and they're in the middle of the state. They're not near any kind of an airport or highway or anything like that. They're really far removed. Um, and I had first started going to the Shoshone Rose, and, it is a very small, it is a tribal casino, but it's almost like mom and pop style. Like you got at the time, the mom was the slot manager, the daughter worked in the cage, the son worked IT. So it's a family affair.
Oh, so it's
And
not corporate or anything like that. A lot
no,
like
they're
a lot of
not
these big
not
casinos.
corporate. No, not corporate
That's
at all.
very interesting.
They are on their own. They're 100%. They don't even have another casino or anything like that. It's just them. And I reached out to them and we started going there, and they were, they're very friendly people. They have a wonderful little casino floor. It's nothing big. It's not Vegas. It's not, shoulder to shoulder packed or anything like that. And they brought us on. They were our first ever actual like deal. So this was when Cowboy Slots was still very small. I think when we first started going there, we had 20, 30,000 subscribers, and they were our very, very first deal. And the zone, we opened the zone when we were a little over 150,000 subscribers at that point, and now we're approaching 400,000, and we still go there to this day. So the zone is kind of if there was any place to have it, the Shoshone Rose would probably be the best one, because that was really kind of the first casino that gave us a shot and gave us the chance. So they have a very, very special place for us. But no, it's a great little place. I would encourage anybody to go out there if you can find it. It's pretty far removed, but yeah.
Do you have any bigger casinos coming asking you for deals? I mean, obviously, you're growing, you're very popular, you're very informative. Anybody from Vegas or Florida or any Atlantic City coming to you asking you to do things?
We do have a couple. There have been casinos that we've worked with in the past that have invited us out. Seven Feathers Casino in Canyonville, Oregon. They had us out twice. Great group of people over there. Really awesome to work with. Obviously in Wendover as well. The Wendover Nugget, those people are amazing. They've been phenomenal to us. We do have a couple more that we're currently in talks with. I won't reveal just yet, but we're currently in talks with. So we'll see how that goes. El Cortez, we've recently gotten very close with El Cortez. Casino manager Adam is great over there. He's a really nice guy, and he's a lot of fun. And I think this next time we go to Vegas, we'll stay there, and we'll really start devoting a lot more time to the El Cortez. So I think you'll probably see that coming up a lot more too.
Okay, you like old Vegas or new Vegas?
It depends. The topic always comes up. Vegas has a little bit of something for everybody, and it depends on what you like, and it really depends on what your goal is. So, like for me, um, if I wanted to go to Vegas and let's say I wanted to have a nice getaway, maybe I didn't want to focus too much on work. Maybe I just want to, like lay by the pool, have some drinks, just be really quiet and removed and just have a nice time. I would stay at Durango Casino. It's off the strip, it's far away, it's quiet, it's clean, it's got great amenities, excellent food, excellent drinks. Um, Gambling though, El Cortez, hands down, has the best gambling in Vegas that you can find. They have a great machine selection. Everything is just super easy, readily available. They tend to have new games when they first come out. So El Cortez for that. Uh, if you want to go to Vegas and you want to have a really good, if food is your big thing, if you want to have a lot of good food, like the best steaks and just all the options for food, New York would probably be the best option. You want something that's more upscale. If you want to, have a night where, you put on a really, really nice clothes and go out and you want to just do something and just be, have a little bit of a fancy getaway, Fontainebleau. So Vegas really has something a little bit for everything. And I try to change it up when I go out there each time I go, but I'll try to hit up at least all those properties once every time I'm out there.
You have been so kind. I don't want to take up a lot of your Sunday.
But we did have another question. We also
Absolutely.
try to do a little homework, behind the scenes, where we can find out you're a councilman.
Yes, I
How's
was
that
elected
working
into
out?
office. Yes, so I did. I won the general election this past election cycle. My first time in office. Still a lot to learn. Obviously, I'm very much green to politics in terms of actually being in politics and being on the other side of it. Um, it is a lot of work. It's very involved. It's also very rewarding. We did get a lot of folks that come up. They'll come up and they want to talk. You know, these big important issues that are facing our community, and just being able to hear their backstories and really be in touch with it and represent them is really cool. Um, I'm not sure yet if it's something that I'd like to, grow further. I know that there's been a couple people asking if I wanted to run for Senate, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to do that yet. I don't know how good I would be doing that. Um, but it is interesting. I will say the election process was very new to learn, and there was a lot to learn. We did like a little town hall debate here, um, even doing things like the buying the signs and going out and doing the campaign work. That was different. Never thought I would be in that position, and I was actually most people don't win their first election, and being in this town, I've only been in this town for 3 years, so I'm still relatively new to this town, and still like winning the first election plus doing that. um it's a lot. It is a lot. We just came out of budget session where we've got another session tomorrow, uh you know that we're going into, so a lot of things I've had to learn. I've learned a lot, especially about like funding, stuff like municipal bonds, tax dollars, where each individual tax dollar goes. I've learned a lot of things that, about government operations that I would have never known unless I had gotten into government. Like, where exactly does each individual cent out of the dollar go for taxes? And some of the stuff, you agree with, some of the stuff you don't. But there's a lot. It's very involved, but I still got a full term left to go, and I guess I'll decide if I'm going to run again or run for something else when that term concludes. But I'm just happy to be here and be able to represent everybody.
Well, now, how do you manage to juggle all this? I mean, between, your home life, you got your slot channel, you got pop, now you're a councilman. I mean, that's got to be a lot of things to juggle in a given day.
It is a lot. It never stops. I will just say that. It's always something every day, and my calendar is pretty much full every single day. There's times where I'll have to move stuff around. 'Cause, I'll have a council meeting, and then I've got to be at the casino the very next morning, and I only get like 2 hours of sleep, and it's a lot. But it's manageable. It keeps
I
me
think
going.
it speaks to your credibility that you do all this and you took time to come on my channel, which is a new channel, and do this. That really speaks a lot to your character.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I hope all the best for your channel. We were all there at one point. There's no channel that starts right off the bat being big, and you never know. Keep at it. Yeah, because you never know what's gonna happen. It just takes one video. Like in my case, I didn't set out to do, did I didn't set out to be this big at all, and now I'm happy I am. Um, Not for any kind of personal reason. Like we spoke about earlier in the episode, really could care less about the actual fame, but it's helping people. And that's the biggest thing, is as long as I can be doing something, at least one small thing every single day to help somebody, whether that is through the channel or whether that is through, politics, as long as I can do one small thing that helps somebody, then my day is complete at that
I
point.
agree.
So
I agree.
best of luck on your channel, and I
It,
hope to see it
it's for
succeed.
fun. My channel is strictly for fun because I told you I'm in the back half of life. But it's awesome to get to know. I love, because I did a lot in my lifetime, started businesses, did a lot of different things. Was retired, went back to work. I worked for a mobility company, and I love helping people. And this was my thing for all you YouTubers. I just wanted to know the backstories. You guys seem like you have this
There's
awesome
some
community. Yeah.
yeah, we noticed like
Yeah.
you in Vegas. Oh, you have any collaborations coming up? That was another question. Like, I know
Oh,
you said something, you were with Vegas Matters, another side of you gambling. Do you have any collaborations coming up? Because we do like to see that. We saw you with Goddess of Slots. We thought that was great. Liked her outfit. You know,
it's always with collaborations, it's always so hard for us. And this is one thing, we talk about this with casinos and other creators as well. Um, Other creators have the luxury. Most of them either live in Vegas or they live in a major city that they can just go fly somewhere. We don't even have an airport here.
no,
So
you don't.
for me to go, so like, and this has happened before where we had a casino in Vegas reach out to us and they said, "Hey, we really want you at this event, you know, come down, this would be great." And we wanted to go. We're like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome. When is it?" And they're like, "Tomorrow morning." It takes me 9 hours to get to Las Vegas, and I have to move everything around and plan for everything. The closest casino, like if we go to Wendover, um, it's 3.5 hours there, 3.5 hours back. So that's 7 hours just in travel time. Um, it's very difficult to nail down a collaboration. Because a lot of times, like when it's time for us to go to Vegas, sometimes, like especially in the winter, we have to completely change it. I know the very first time that we were supposed to meet up with Vegas Matt, we had to cancel because we had just gotten to Vegas and we were only there for a day, and then we had to close up shop and run home because the roads were getting ready to close for a snowstorm, and the roads just will completely shut down here, and then we wouldn't be able to get home. So there's a lot of times where if we're in Vegas, it is a very short window. So it's really difficult to get a collaboration together. I don't have any coming up anytime soon, but I'm sure if it's available, we'll do a pop in. We are going to Reno for our first time. Actually, second time. We've been to Reno before, but first time at the Peppermill in Reno. I know a lot of the big creators like to go to Peppermill, so we wanted to go check it out too. We will be there week after next. It is on our website too. So we put all of our the website actually updates with all of our travel before I even say anything. So the second the second we can solidify a time with the casino, it goes on the website first. So I would recommend, if anybody is wanting to know where Cowboy Slots will be next, to check out our website, which is ropethejackpot.com.
Okay. And do you do any group pools while you're doing things? Like I haven't noticed you do anything like that.
We're gonna have to get off.
Yeah, we don't do any group polls just because I'm not that there's a lot of liability there, and I'm surprised that a lot of creators do it. No fault to them. I mean, if they want to do it, they can. But I'm not comfortable taking other people's money and holding on to it to essentially spin the button for them or whatever, and then split up the money when it's done. That's a lot of liability. So we don't do any group polls or anything like that. Um, you know, Meetups, will occasionally do meetups. It's very rare. We usually only do like maybe one, I think at best two meetups a year. So if we do have a meetup or an event, it's kind of one of those things. We did one cruise.
Oh, yeah,
That
noticed
cruise
that.
that we've had a lot of people ask when our next one is, and I said that was a one and done deal. It's too, it's way too difficult for us to travel out, and I think a lot of people don't really understand just how far Wyoming is really removed. When you come into Wyoming, there's not a lot of infrastructure that supports. It's not like other states. There's not major airports. There's not highways everywhere. When I traveled to the Shoshone Rose Casino, it is a 2-lane road with no gas station, no cell phone service, and I can go the entire stretch and never pass a vehicle in 2.5 hours of being on that road. So it's a lot of people don't quite understand that, and that's why it's very difficult to organize anything, because you know we're so affected by the weather, the conditions. Can we get out? Will we get out? And then everything costs significantly more. So if someone's like, "Oh, just come over and pop over to this casino," I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, well, that's going to be like $1,000 in fuel, and then we got to do this, and it's not worth it at that point. So there's a lot of factors in that, but it's difficult to do meetups. But if we do any, we will advertise them and we put them on our website. That's why we try to keep the website as up to date as possible. So if you're going to be in Reno, I forget the exact dates, but it's on the website. It's week after next. If you're going to be in Reno, we will be out there.
I would love to do that, but that's not going to happen for me.
At least not yet.
Hey, I want to let you have some of your Sunday. You have no idea how much we appreciate this. You are an amazing human being.
Well,
So
thank you.
we're going to let you go. Oh, wait, one last question.
Yes.
I could talk to you for like 3 hours.
That's okay. That's okay.
Will
That's what
you
we're here
ever
for.
build your own slot machine?
Tough question. Hang on to that one. Hang on to that one for a little bit.
Okay. And on that note, would it be an old 3 reel, which I know you like, or would it be one of these newer games?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that one.
Build your own slot machine. I'd like to play that at the casino. Okay, I'm gonna let you go. Again, thank you so much. It was a really big
really
pleasure.
appreciate
Well, thank you.
time.
Well, thank you
take
guys. I
care.
appreciate being on here. Thank you.